Is everybody happy with where they're sitting?
Oh,
we've only got 4 left. Has everybody offered everybody one? Okay, well done, Larry. My little helper, she's going in a minute. I think we're looking at it. I think we're pretty safe, aren't we? In terms of, yeah. And obviously, you've all worn your masks as you come in. Thank you. Obviously, you've all sanitised, have you? Thank you. I don't think there's anything else to tell you, is there? Apart from, it's just common sense, isn't it? And in a minute, Russell's going to come and talk to you as well. Yeah. Talking of common sense. Can't stick that on, Larry. Here we go. Do you want to come and say your bit, Russell? Because if anybody else is coming, they're going to be late anyway. So, this is my mate Russell.
Hardly. I just want to put everyone's mind at rest. I'm at the back. Some of you have seen it on the groups. I'm streaming this out. None of you are on. It's just the back of your heads. But one of the benefits of doing that is we've been able to have a close-up of the board, so you'll see what's going on, and that'll go out. But none of you, all your artwork, I can reassure you, is going out. One of the reasons I'm doing this is because of all these, the COVID and all that. The Remembrance Parade is in a bit of doubt of how Aldridge does it, and I work on the Remembrance Committee, and we want to look at if we can live stream. So I'm working with the church. So this is a test in some ways that we can do it for Remembrance. So thank you for having me here. Deb's been in makeup and hair for an hour. So,
yeah, right. Yeah,
right. So any questions, ask me. But it's going out. You better watch it again on YouTube, and it's going to certain Facebook sites. But as I say, none of you are on unless you choose to be on. If you've got a great piece of work and you want to show it off, then fine. It's only fun. If you've got any questions of me, please ask. I can give you a link afterwards where it's going to be. But I'm going to hand you over now to Aldridge's Bob Ross.
Has anybody ever seen Bob Ross? Do you know what we're talking about here? I said to Russell, if we're doing a Bob Ross, I'm going to put my fingers in the sockets of my hairs like that. Right, so I suppose we could start. It's a bit smack on. So what I'm going to do is I'll just explain to you first of all what we're going to do today, and then I'll go through it step by step with you. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a little talk that will explain to you the most important lesson that I think I can teach you. So you need to listen to that bit. Fall asleep afterwards, but just listen to that bit. Then I'm going to explain the most important bit about watercolour. And I bet some of you have never even used it before, have you? No, lots of shaking of heads. So, hello, Sheila, come on in, love. The next thing I'm going to do is then a quick little demo, which you're going to have a little go at copying. It's only going to be really quick. And then I'm going to do a proper demo of just a very, very simple picture that's just going to be, I've got it here, all in one colour. And you're just going to copy it in stages. Now you can do that, can't you? That's really, really simple. But it does mean, that you'll actually get a picture done today, which will make you feel better. Then after lunch, hi darling, come and sit down. Yeah, there are other spaces, but if you want, I don't know if that's the best space to see. Over there might be slightly better, but then we have lunch, a good chance to get to know each other. And after lunch, we're going to do a question and answer session, because I've found that people have got so many questions, and that's obviously usually the way you learn a lot. So we'll do that, and then you've got another demonstration and another copy. Everybody happy with that? All right. So any questions before we start? No? Right, okay. So this is the most important lesson that I'm going to teach you, and here it is. This is a picture I took on my holidays. Sorry, Cherry, I'm going to have back to you in a bit. We'll move you around in a bit. This is a picture I took on my holidays. I was in Cornwall, and a load of kids were just faffing around by my campsite, and I got them drawing, and here they all are, looking enthusiastically, sitting on the grass, drawing away. And we made it a children's art competition. So there's all their paintings in a great long line. They'd all put stones on them. They were thrilled to bits. The manager came and gave them all sweets, and other people on the campsite came along to see them, and everybody loved it. It was great fun. Hold that thought. Hold that picture in your mind. I'm now going to read you some of your comments off our WhatsApp group. Are you ready? Don't worry, I'm not going to name any of you. Somebody said, I'm very excited, but please don't laugh at me. I can't draw or paint to save my life. Somebody else then went ditto. Somebody else then said, same here. Somebody else said, I'm mega excited, but I'm going to be hopeless too. Then somebody said, ha ha, I'm just so nervous and scared, I'll make a fool of myself. And somebody else then said, don't worry, sit with me, because I'm setting up the what if I make a right beep of myself group. Somebody else then said, I've not painted since I was at school, so I'll be in that group too. And someone else said, I'm really excited, but I know I'm going to be rubbish. Now, you've all seen the WhatsApp group, so you've all seen that really is only a small portion, isn't it? You're all nodding. That's only a small portion of the comments. So what I want to do is just contrast and compare the difference between those kids enthusiastically drawing away and proudly showing off their work to the whole campsite, and you lot going, so how do we get, something must happen, mustn't it, before you get from this to this. And I just want to read you a little passage from an art book by Gordon Mackenzie. So just listen to this. This is, I think, the most important thing I get to say to you today. So, try and remember this. You've always known how to compose pictures and paint. You did it as a child and you never forgot. What you have lost is the memory and the nerve to follow your instincts when making a picture. What you've temporarily forgotten is how to play. What you grew instead was an ego that demanded protection from embarrassment at all costs. Any nodding? Yes. Yeah. So we went from this enthusiasm to you lot being terrified in that process. So what I'm saying to you now is, forget it. Forget the embarrassment. Forget the worry. We're all here to learn. If you can already do it, then bugger off, because there's no point in being here. So everyone relax, everybody have fun, and just keep that image. I'm even going to put it where we can see it. Just keep that image in your mind, okay? Of those kids having fun. Not one of those children said to me, oh, I can't do this. Not one of them said, oh, I'm really scared. So, everybody got that? Okay. So, that's the most important lesson for painters. And this is now the most important lesson for watercolours. Here we go. When you painted at school, you probably had heavy paints, didn't you? You put the dark and then you put the light on top, all nodding. Or you may have seen oils. Somebody, again, put on our WhatsApp group, oh, I've just seen a programme where they're painting with a knife. Is that what we're going to be doing in this group? No, really isn't. Watercolour is completely the opposite of that. So all these heavy paints that you're used to, where you put dark colours first and then you can put lights on top, forget that. What we do in watercolour is exactly the opposite. We leave the whites first. The white is our paper. We don't use white paint. We could, Karen's nodding. Are you pointing to your white paint, Karen?
Why is what you chuck my whites? In the sandwich, chucked it. I'm going to stand it.
Has she? So I threw Karen's white away when I found it in a pallet, but she's borrowed the paints of another friend of ours, and she's outed her as having white, is she? Right, we'll have that. So it's hard to understand. I'm going to do a quick demonstration to explain to you. Here are some of the pictures, some of my pictures, and these are just painted without any white paint. So all I've done here is leave the white of the paper and paint around it. And where you want a light colour, like this one, all you do is you do a very pale wash of paint. Sorry, Cherry, we're going to move you with me.
You the screen.
Do I look better on the screen? All you do is you do a light wash of paint, and in the same way as white paint would mix normally and lighten a colour, in watercolours, the white paper will shine through and lighten the colour. So a very pale wash in these is lightened by the white paper. And the white of the flower here is the white of the paper, and I've just conditioned it slightly with a bit of a tint. Now this morning, Russell, we suddenly decided at the last minute to try this camera business. So I needed to do a quick painting. So this is the one I've just done. And as you can see, it's just the white of the paper left, and I painted around. All right, so I'm going to do that now very quickly for you, and then you're going to have a go at just fiddling with your watercolours, just having a go with the water and just getting the feel of it. When we've done that, then I'll do a proper demo for you to copy, but I want you to get the feel of it first. So this is this morning. We're not going to run out of paper. Right. So, very, very quickly, I'll just give you an example. So it's, we just draw very quickly. Just draw the daisy that I've just done this morning. Okay? Right. I'm going to make this daisy happen by not painting it at all. This is what we call negative painting. When you paint round something to make it appear, that's called negative painting. Right, so just very quickly. Okay. And you see it's starting to appear. We don't need any white paint. And can you also see, look, as I add more water to it, the paint gets lighter. You see that? So if I want a really dark bit, I just go straight into my paint. Can you see that's much darker because there's less water? So more water makes it lighter. Okay. Here we go. Now, I don't normally paint standing up like this because what will happen with watercolour is it will drip down, but it doesn't matter because this is just a little bit of fun. So, okay, Cherry, you all right looking at my back? If I'd known this was going to happen, I'd have worn a dress with something nice happening at the back. Right, so can you see already? I'm going to put a little bit of another colour in so it doesn't get boring. There we are, look. A bit of pink. And then let's get some green. If you join the main class, you'll find I really try to encourage you not to use ready mixed greens. But I think today, at this stage of the game, everything today is about making things simple for you. So we'll have a little bit of green. Got a bit of stem there. I don't want to do it too long because it's just a quick mess about. Oh, it's funny for me seeing it up there. I always tell people that when you're painting, always step away and look at your painting. But it's great for me. I don't need to step away. I just look right up there. Right, we can make this look more of a daisy now by putting the middle in. Can you see how simple this is? All I've done is I've painted around the edge of the shape of the daisy. Let's give this a bit of form by putting a bit of colour in to make it look a little bit more. Okay. So can you see this is so simple? And the number of things to notice. One, notice I'm using loads of water. A lot of beginners, they have little brushes and they're a bit scared of the water, so you get these very dry strokes. Whereas here we've just got a mad wash of nonsense going on. Right, now we just need to define these petals a bit. So we'll just Obviously, I haven't got time to do it as much as I did it this morning down there. Karen Green, can I see you making notes?
Yes.
You swat. You're not going to live this down in a hurry.
Well, I've got such a short memory.
Right. I'm not going to do too much, just going to faff around. There we are. Is that enough just to give you the impression of what we're doing? Okay. Don't we want a bit of a stem there? There we go, a bit of a leaf. Okay, that'll do for now. Can you see this bead is collecting here, there? I can just, if it's going to run down, look, I can just suck it up with a thirsty brush. There. Okay. A little bit of browny colour just to set it off there. Right. Very quick. But there we go. So, all we've got here, all right, is the shape. Oh, Derek, you green! So it's a toss-up now between Karen and Derek for Student of the Day. Although I have to say, Val Osborne's bought cake, so she's out in, you know. Yeah. Right, so, a few things to notice here. We left the white of paper. We used plenty of water. We didn't faff around with twee little dry strokes. We absolutely went in for it. And you can see why I kind of said to all of you, you do need a big brush. Because when you buy those little kits, they often come with a... Right, yeah. So like a little tiny brush like that. Sorry, Cherry, I shouldn't have touched it. You've got to sanitize it now. So you can imagine if you tried to do that with a tiny brush, it would have been disastrous. So I'll just wipe Cherry's brush. Oh, dear. For a woman who never follows rules, this has nearly killed me, this COVID stuff. I seriously have followed all the rules just for once. I suppose because it's kind of too important not to, isn't it, really? So, you know. So bear those things in mind. You're going to have now 10 minutes or so just to fiddle, have a go, have a little play with your brush. Use plenty of water. Have a go like this. But also, I suggest what you might do is have a go at painting some squares and then a circle. And then another one about brush control is if you try, it's harder than you think it is actually, writing your name. Okay? So, play, get your stuff out. If anybody needs anything, just shout. If you haven't got a big brush, I can lend you one. Well, I'll have to carry them over to you in a wet wipe. Hold on. In fact, it's easier. Do you want to come and get it? If anybody hasn't got a big brush, I've brought some for you to borrow. Yeah.
Are these suitable brushes that I've bought?
Yes, they are, but you do need a bigger one. That's an actual beauty. That's one of my best. Thank you. That one.
When you said size 8,
No, that an 8's fine, but you can borrow a bigger one as well. They will look after it. Anybody else need a big brush? Christine, yep. Help yourself, darling. That's a beauty. Yeah. Yeah. No, Pat, I'll lend you a bigger one. Probably that's. I'll just wipe it there for you. Thank you. Sarah? Lovely. That's all right. That's a really big one. Or that one. That looks scruffy, but actually it does come to a nice point when it's wet. So choose one of those. Oh, is that big enough? Have a bigger one, Cherry. Yeah, okay. Have a big one. Big one, yeah. Big one. Big enough. That's okay. You can have a big one. Is that one big enough? Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yeah. Right, these pieces of paper, unfortunately, I'm going to sell them to you. But don't worry, don't take them. Yeah. Yeah. Have yourself fun. Yeah, that's probably the best one. I think that's going to be a bit complicated for you. How's it? That's a bit bigger for them. got a beauty there, Sheila. Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, you might need one with a point, Sheila, as well. So, borrow that one. Oh, actually, yeah. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, everybody got everything they need? Yeah. Oh, that's beauty. Is that mine or yours? Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, that's lovely.
So this is Russell at the back of the class. So people are doing their own exercises now. Thank you for those that are tuning in. I can't see comments, so if anyone's asking anything, the internet, other than the stream going out, the internet from my phone isn't working too well. So do add comments if you can. And as I say, it's as well as anything else, it's a test for future use of the church rooms. We're at the church rooms in Aldridge, and this is Debbie Flenley's watercolor workshop, which is going to run throughout the day, but there'll be demonstrations and people having a go. So, and people can dip in and watch as they will.
So there's the one we did this morning, and there's the quick one now. Oh, Derek Peer, you've not even unwrapped your payments. No, for goodness sake. Okay, your first 5 minutes is unwrapping payments. Oh, brilliant. How many of you are unwrapping paints? Oh my God. It takes ages unwrapping each one. I'm telling you now. So unwrap your blue one first, because that's your best, most likely to use. Right, so nobody feel precious about this. This is playing. You're getting the feel of the water, you're getting the feel of the paints. Well, you were the student of the day, and now you've ruined it. Here, let me help you. There's no rush, we've got loads of time. She says. Oh, really, I'm impressed because it means you've bought the paint especially. Yeah, probably blue. There's no rush. You don't need the white. I did say play, so just play. We don't unwrap white, do we? Oh! No, I'll keep mine. I'll have those whites for the bin. Later on, I will talk to you about using white. You can use white, but much, much further down the line. These are some cards of my work where I have used white, but I think you can see it's on a dark background. Can you see? And the white was used just to paint the tutu. But can you see that the white on this, I'll put them out for you to have a look at, is solid and opaque. If you started mixing that in with your watercolours, you'd get an opaque mess. You'd lose that lovely transparency, which is what we're trying to go for. Okay? So there's a couple of examples there. I'll put them on the table so you can have a look. So maybe you can keep your white, but if you use it today, I will have to kill you. Colin, what happened to my drink? I had it. Capri Sun and lost it. Oh, it's there. I knew I brought colour for a reason. Use that one. Okay, so how many of you, is this the first time you've actually fiddled with watercolours? Is it very different and very strange to anything you've ever painted with before? Yeah. Do you see what I mean about using, those who have actually started who aren't still around? Do you see what I mean about using lots of water? It's the water that carries the paint. Some people don't use enough of it. So it's good to get you started on a really loose approach like this.
I thought you would have to use different paintbrushes for each colour.
No, that's a good comment. That is a really good comment. Christine has just made a good point. She said, I thought you'd have to use a different paintbrush for each colour. Well, you do, don't you, when you're at school? Yeah, but with this, as you saw, you just dip it in the water, wash it out, give it a good squizzle around, and then you can dip into another colour again. Do you know, Christine, I never thought of that. That is a really fair point, isn't it? Mm. Joe, can I use more water, darling? Okay. I also need to know, do I have your permission, all of you? Do you feel comfortable enough with one another yet that I can use your work to show one another as examples? Yeah? Joe, you sure? Yeah. See, what Joe's doing here is lovely, but if she just adds a bit more water, it just won't be quite so solid. Yeah? That's it. That's it. Plenty of water, go for it. Yeah? More paint and more water. So I'm going to give you my paints, darling, because have a go with these. I think you'll find these much better. Okay? I don't want to touch them because then you touch them. Oh, God, there we go. Okay? Yeah. And then you'll need something to mix it on, so you can still open that. Or I'll give you a plate. Okay? You might find that better. Oh, lovely. Absolutely great. No worries at all. Yeah? Yeah. Wow, you're not messing around, Sherry. Way. Love it. It's like painting the ceiling. Yeah. Am I allowed to use your two as an example? Okay. And can you use your sheet? Can I just show you these two? I mean, they're both great. Cherry and Sheila. Now you can see one has used more paint and less water. And Sheila's used, Sheila, it's just run. Sheila's used more water and less paint. So there we've got a really good example of the difference. Whereas when you're used to using normal old school type paints, you just dip it in and you get the colour, don't you? Whereas you can see with these, with watercolour, you get the colour depending on how much water you add. So those two are an absolutely brilliant example. The other thing that you can do is don't be scared if it runs. Simply, look, just dab it with a tissue. Okay?
The tissue's wet.
The tissue's wet.
Water spilled all over it.
Yeah. So thank you. Let me use that. It didn't mind. No. Well done. Yeah, and because Carol's brush is quite dry, look how we're getting strokes like that as opposed to a wash. So if Carol's brush was wetter, you'd get more of a wash than these dry strokes. Does that make sense? Sometimes having these dry strokes is great. It gives you a nice effect, and we're going to be using that later on. But just to explain to you, that's what happens. Keep putting down the drink and losing it. Where is it? Drink. No, it's not like that with a glass of wine. I've completely lost. Oh, there it is. So how does it feel, people who've never done it before? Feels strange? Yeah. You see? Oh, right, okay. Yeah. Go, Derek. We're there. Now, who pushes that? Derek's all right. Derek, can we get you another brush? Oh, okay. Because you've got a flat edge there, it's great for doing washes. When you want to go round things. Yeah. So let's wash things. Right, so go like that. And then look more and wash. Okay? Hey. Yeah, bit more paint. Dry the more. Here we are. Have a go with this one, Pat.
Just in case you're wondering about the sound, I've muted it in the room because of some music playing, and Facebook doesn't like that. So I'll bring when she's doing the demos, and I'll bring the proper talking back up there.
Maggie's just given me permission to publicly humiliate her. She's just said, I don't believe it, Mags. What did you just say to me? Of course you're rubbish. It's your first 5 minutes. Oh, go back to the kids on the grass, painting away. It doesn't matter if it's good in inverted commas. This is a learning exercise, and all you're doing now at this point is just playing with your paints, just to get the feel of them. So I hope everybody's rubbish, because if you're not, right. I notice our resident DJ sneaks in some music. What did you just say? Come on. Yeah. Folks, I only meant this to be a quick 5-minute exercise, but I can see. Yeah, I can see that yeah. I'm going to run with this for a bit longer because I can see that you're really going with it. Some of you are doing some great stuff. Some of you are just, some of you haven't quite got the idea that you dip your brush into the paint, add the water and sort of mix it around on your palette before you put it on your paper. So use your mixing palettes a bit more. So,
Is that your palette? Oh, right.
guys, can I just show you? I'll just show you again. I'm using Helen's palette. So, brush in the water, in the paint, picking it up, then I'll put it on the mixing palette, mix it around with a bit of water. Can you all see? So I'm just mixing it around with a bit of water. And then, with that beautifully loaded brush that's now loaded with water and paint, you can put it on and do some lovely big strokes. As opposed to dry bits. Can you see the difference? Yeah? I love the way Russ and assured you all no one would get to see painted. That's lovely.
She's took it off now.
Val's just asked, does it matter in which direction you do it? No, it doesn't. Some of you are left-handed, some of you are right-handed. The only thing I would say is don't forget that you're going from light to dark. So if you want light, take your light first and then add the darkers afterwards. But the actual direction, no, it really doesn't matter. Yeah. Lovely. That's great. You're happy now. You daren't say though, dare you? Because you're too scared. Everybody's too scared now to say if they're struggling. So can you see it? Yeah? Thank you. Yeah. Oh yeah, Russell, someone's just said, can they have the picture up again on the thing? Yeah. Do you want the picture I did earlier or the quick one I did just now? Which one? The quick one. Right, there's a couple more here as well. I'll just pass around the room. I just did quickly this morning just to help you. I don't know if it's COVID, you'll be allowed to pass paper around if we are. Yeah. Only bit of gloss. Yes. I think for all of you, it's about being that little bit bolder. Dip it in the paint more, mix it with the water more. Some of you being a bit tentative. That's brilliant. That's so much better than that. Yeah. And yours, Deb, it's so much better. Yeah. Yeah. It's all right, though. Pat, do you want this one, darling? Can I just repeat what Sarah's said? Sarah's just said it's about training your brain to think differently. And yes, it is, isn't it? So when you think back, that's why I keep sort of talking about the paint some of you had at school. What you're doing is so very different. And so I think Sarah's got a really good point there. So this little exercise is just about switching your brain round and thinking differently. Yeah. Right, we'll just give this 2 more minutes. Another good point. Karen's just said, yeah, very good point. She said some people, you want to use your pencil, like you want to use your brush like a pencil. And of course you don't, do you? You're not scribing, aren't you? You're painting. Yeah. I think all this is about learning to be a bit freer and flowing with it. Going with the flow, Cherry, thank you. Yeah. I shouldn't be saying anything that's fantastic because nobody should be doing anything fantastic at this stage. You should all be struggling and wonder why the hell you came. Yeah. Val, do you want this up? Just so it's quiet. Right, just 2 more minutes on this. Okay, have you got one of these? Yeah. Okay. Right. So any feedback from that? Some of your comments were really useful. Any feedback from that? How did you find it? Relaxing. That shows that you're in the right frame of mind, Sue. So some of you will have found it relaxing, some of you will have found it really stressful. So some of you will be the kids on the beach, and some of you will be. Yeah, so nobody, so you can just throw away what you've done there. It's not going to be a painting to show anybody. It's just going to be purely an exercise. All right, as is this next one. All right. Karen, when it was my birthday last year, Karen made me the most amazing birthday presents. I'm really nervous now this next year. Right. What we're going to do now is just take it a stage further. You've kind of got the feel of it, yeah? You've got the understanding that, was it you who said, Marilyn, that it's completely different? No, you, Christine, said it's a different way of thinking, isn't it? And if you've taken on board, that's a different way of thinking. So we'll take that a step further now. And what we're going to do, If you have a look at the little handout in front of you.
Yeah.
Russell, would you like one for your...
About 28
Have you not got one? Right. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take that understanding of incorporating lots of water into it and move it into actually making a picture. Okay? I think now that you've got the feel of it, you'll be all right doing this, so don't be nervous. What we're going to do is we're going to wash the watercolour across, and then as we come down, we're going to add a bit of water to it, and that's going to make it lighter. Remember, I said more paint is darker, more water is lighter. So our first wash is going to go across like that and come down. That little bit there was my attempt at dabbing out a tissue in case you wanted to make a cloud. All right? When that's dry, we can then put in some background. Again, more paint is darker, less paint, it becomes lighter as it comes down. And again, lifting out with the tissue just to make a little path. Remember, you can always lift out the paint with the tissue. And then we can add on a few extra little bits, whatever you want. You can add a pond, you can add a house, you can add a tree, it doesn't matter. But it's going to be just one colour, because that's going to make it easier for you to concentrate on what you're doing rather than worrying about the colour. Okay? And also it'll mean that you can use the tones, get your tones nice and strong, because good tones make a good picture. All right? So, would you like me to just demonstrate it for you first? Okay. Sherry, I'm sorry about my back. Yeah. We spent ages this morning, absolute ages, trying to sort out the tables. And then Russell came along and said, can we film it? And we moved them all again. Right. Lots of water. I don't know if you can see, but I'm dipping my brush in the water, then in the paint, and mixing it together. Sorry if you can't actually see that. Let me just sort of hold it up for a bit. Yeah. Can you see? So my brush is going in the water, then it's going in the paint, and then I'm just sort of mixing it together in the palette. All right? And I think that's what some of you were struggling with just now, wasn't it? You weren't quite getting that idea of mixing in the watercolour. Right, let's show you then what we're going to do. This is where a big brush comes in useful. So we'll start at the top. Oh, nice big drip there. Look at that. Now you can see you've got a bead of water collecting there. Let's wipe this one off. So what you do when you're laying a wash is you come back, you pick up that bead and go across again. Look. All right? And then a bead is collecting at the bottom. Now, normally you wouldn't get this big drippy down because it wouldn't be so vertical. All right? So I'm going to do it again. So I go along, pick up the bead. Here we go. And then it collects at the bottom. Does that make sense? And can you see why having a big brush makes it so much better? Now, this time I'm just putting water. Okay? And now another time I'm just putting water. So it's gone from dark to light. It's not very smooth, but it really doesn't matter. Right, the next part of the painting, I'm going to put in the hill. So I'm going to come down like that. Again, back in the paint, back in the water, pick it up again. Comes down, big drip, doesn't matter. All right. Then this time, I want it to fade out, so I'm just going to add water this time. There we go. And add water. So can you see what's happening? And then if I want to tilt it, it'll run together more. You got that? So there's our basis. There's stage 1. We now need to dry that before we add the tree and things, because when it's wet, it runs together. Now, sometimes that's good. Wet in wet, we call it. So that when we did this, and I put the colours in there, that was wet in wet, that ran together. That was great. But you don't always want it to happen if you're going to put, say, a hard line of a tree over the top. So wet in wet sometimes is your friend, sometimes it would be your enemy. All right, so in this case, we need that to dry before you can put the tree on. So what do they say? Here's one I've done earlier. I've always wanted to say that. The other thing I've always wanted to say is, you know, when people get in a taxi and they go, follow that car. Right, I'm now going to move to a slightly smaller brush. And let's put in the tree. I'll do it from the bottom upwards. That's the way it grows. And as you go up, you tend to make your brush lighter. You tend to pull it off the paper. So, for example, look, if I start like that with a big stroke, as I come up, can you see it? It goes thinner. Yeah? So again, just get the tree. It's going to drip down. Hey, I knew that was going to happen. So normally, as I said to you just before, you wouldn't have this problem because it wouldn't be so vertical. So here we are, look, here's your tree. And then just dance your strokes. One of the things I've noticed that beginners do is they make their trees a little bit too stiff. Okay? So just dance some branches. Now, what else would you like to put in? You could roll up a tissue and lift out a little path. If you do that, just make sure your path gets thinner as you go back, obviously, with perspective. Okay, you can press a tissue in there for a cloud if you want. This is going to be entirely up to you. Now, let's make this path. Give it a few little... I'll give you a little tip here if you want to do some good grass. Put a little blob of watercolour like that. Okay, then turn your brush upside down and go like that. Okay. So we can have some, here we go, we can have some little things there. It's up to you here if you want a pond or a bush or, you know, it's entirely up to you. Whatever you want to put in it, have a little, okay. Make some bushes here, make it darker underneath. Okay, so you've got the idea. When your tree is a bit drier, it's no good doing it now, it's too wet. Load up your brush. Remember when I showed you someone's strokes before? Was it yours, Carol? And I said they were very dry.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you want to get a dry brush, load it up with paint, press the bottom like that. So you're sucking out the water, but you're leaving in the paint. So then it's quite dry, and you can just do some little, can you see? Just a little bit of a hint of branches on the tree instead of filling it all in. Everybody got that? Mm-hmm. So you've got, choose this one, this is slightly better. So you've got, on the piece of paper, you've got your first wash down, yeah? Mm-hmm. Then stop it, because we haven't got a hairdryer. Normally I'd say dry it before you put the next layer on, but obviously we can't share the hairdryer today. So just stop the paint before there. Bring on this next level, right? As you come down, add more water, right? If you want to lift out anything, just press it with a tissue, all right? What you can do with your tissue is roll it up into a little point, and then you've got more, what's the word I want? Control. Thank you. More control with it, okay? Then obviously, when you may need to just let that dry, then you can put on your tree and you can put in your other details. Any questions? No? No. Right, we'll have a go at this. You can have as long as you like, and then we'll stop for lunch. Any questions, Max? That is actually a very good question. You probably don't at this stage, because I'm looking at everybody's water. And, yeah, maybe cherry. No, I think it is a good question. And I would say always try and keep your water clean. because dirty water, you're going to lose your transparency. But because of the complications here, and because you've only had one little play, I mean, certainly Maggie, you could just add more water to yours, darling. Maybe add a bit more. No, apart from Sherry, I don't think there's anyone needs to change their water, but that is a good question. Just make sure when you're doing the washes, you kind of go for your biggest brush. Yeah, Derek, you could use that big flat one, and it could go across in a flat stroke. Any other questions before we start that? No? Okay, have a little go. Oh, bless you, so well trained. Anything underneath your board, and you have your board at an angle, not a steep spine obviously, but at an angle, it'll help the paper down. So just stick something, anything on your board. So in your case, we'll just stick it underneath.
It's just another exercise taking place. A demo will follow, but as I drop the sound out because of music playing in the background, and Facebook can get a bit awkward about copyright and stuff. So Just if there's any dialogue that you need to hear, any speak, then I'll bring the sound up, and when the music stops.
And now this second wash is absolutely spot on. So the point of that is that often your paper can make a big, big difference. And what is this paper? No. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it is. It's fairly cheap. Yeah. Tell you what I'll give you. Hold on. Have a go on this, darling. This is really What you can do is stretch your paper and stick it down, and we'll learn all about that later on. For now, we're just going for convenience. But if you leave it on your pad, it'll hold it down. Some pads are gummed all the way around, and they hold your paper flat. And there's just a little hole there where you put the knife in to separate. So we've had students with those pads, and they've been completely foxed. So if you've got one of those, that's what you need to do. But for that, Derek, just use that one. Oh, that's lovely. Right, do you want to get you started, Derek? Right, so, let me reach you. Right. So, what we'll do is we'll mix loads like this. Right? When you've got loads, then you can stroke it across like that. Back in, get some more water. Stroke it across again. So you can see you're getting a really flat wash. Okay? And then there's that bead there. So that bead. Stroke it across. And so now you might as well start putting it in. Okay? How are we doing? I can tell you are going to be strong colours and bold, and you are going to be light colours and delicate. But that is good. That is good. One of the things I've noticed, guys, is that people very, very much have their own style. Some people paint very neat and tight, and other people like to paint big and bold. And a classic example is Tweedledum and Tweedledee here again. You can see that Sheila's, they're both lovely pieces, but Sheila is going to be delicate and light. Oh, okay. Colin says show it onto the things. Cameraman's put it off for a fag. Right. So, I don't know how to do this. Cameraman, you just caught out.
Sorry, that was me.
Was it?
My fault.
Shame on you. It's all right. Right, what I was just saying was, it becomes obvious very soon into any kind of course that people definitely have their own style. So I can see already that Sheila is going to be delicate and light, and you're going to be, Cherry, a lot stronger. But actually, that's brilliant.
Or just more nervous.
No. And that's what we want. We definitely want people to paint the way that suits them. We sometimes get people on the courses who've been on a weekend course with blah, blah teacher, and they come back and I just know. I go, oh, you've been on the Ron Ranson weekend, haven't you? And they go, how do I know? And I go, because you're painting just like him. And so I'm really cautious with you lot. I never want you to paint just like me. I will always try and encourage you to do your own thing and paint your own way. And that's a classic example. So Cherry, you're going to be bolder in your style. And Sheila, I know Sheila anyway, Sheila's quite delicate and girly. So till she's had 5 points, I have to say. So I'm going to encourage all of you to paint in the style that suits you. I'm not going to knock individuality out of you at all. And even though this is only a second little exercise, it's already coming through. You see, Christine, you're quite bold and strong. And Pat, can I show you your painting card? This was a very quick one that Pat did. She's on her second now. But look, I could see that with Pat, there's a confidence and a strength in there. So you're going to be quite a bold painter rather than... Two of my friends joined my class. One was very delicate, and she did little sort of botanical illustrations, terribly neat. Every vein on the leaf was painted in, and that became her style. And my other friend Jen just threw the paint on the paper and hoped for the best. But it was great. It just suited them. So however you want to go with it, don't copy me slavishly. Okay? That's working well. That was a bit heavy. You didn't get the graduation there, but it was brilliant. Yeah, it's great. And you, Carol. I love it. Yeah, just put dry enough. No, it's fine, honestly. Yeah. 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 Let me come round. Yes, let's get the big brush. in your mixing palettes, there should be, when I come round, I want to see lots of water being mixed in the palette. It's French ultramarine, I just use French ultramarine. Can you see that? There you go. That's just because we've got a lot of water. Okay. 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 It's much better for the French than the other. There's a hair dryer. Yeah, but that's worked well. That one time in Ireland, it's not really well. Can, but it's actually only good. Oh, Derek, brilliant. So much better. Gosh, by changing papers, look at the difference it's made to Derek's picture. Yeah, well done, Des. When you get to the tree, if you just take your brush and just dance it through your branches. You don't want hard lines. In nature, you don't get that many hard lines. I like where you brush it. Trees don't always do it. Yeah. Looks like Colin's on hairdryer duty, so if you want to make use of him, it's time somebody did. He's retired now, so he's no use to everybody. Anybody else need Colin on hairdryer duty?
We've missed you both, haven't you?
Right, now come on, Carol, start at the bottom. Oh, right. Okay, come on.
How did you get the...
Right, good question. Christine's just said, how did I get that sort of fluffy effect on the tree? So it was a lot to take in before, so let me just repeat that bit. So what I've done is I'd already painted up the branches. All right. So remember, I said with your tree, start at the bottom, press hard at the bottom because it's thicker, then come up and dance it out. Okay. And then when that bit was dry, I got what I said was dry brush technique. So what it means is you load your brush with your paint. Okay, so my paint is now, my brush is now loaded with paint and water. But what I'm going to do is press it with a tissue and suck at the bottom there, press it, and that sucks out the water and leaves the paint in. So then I'm going to get a dry stroke. Like if you remember we said with Carol's, didn't we, Carol, at the beginning? She'd had those dry strokes. That's what it was. So now, when you've got a dry brush, look, you can just, can you see that kind of, by turning it on its side, so I'm not painting with the point anymore. There's the point, look, right? That's painting with the point. But by pressing out the water, turning it on its side, look, you get this dry brush technique, which is quite good for sort of trees in winter when you don't want to. Okay, so you load up your brush, press out the water at the bottom, yeah, then you can turn it on its side and get that dry brush technique. And with your tree, don't forget, paint from the bottom upwards. And then when you get nearer the top, you can just dance out. We don't really want straight branches because no branches in nature are really straight. Okay? And then at this point, it helps to move to a smaller brush if you want to do your branches with the smaller brush. Then go back to your bigger brush to get that dry brush technique. Any more questions? No? So Carol, what we've got here, let's go to your smaller brush now and then we'll just sit down and see. Okay? Right? We'll have a last sort of few minutes on this, shall we? And then we can take a break and lie down. Oh, yes. Gosh, wow, look at the difference the paper's made to that. Can I show you? Can I just show you all this? So Kim struggled. So Kim struggled with the first one. And so again, I suggested she change the paper. And I gave her a piece of my paper and went smaller. And look at this, fantastic. Okay, so she showed, oh look, that's it. That's great. So the difference from that and that, brilliant. So I think for quite a few people, the right materials have made a big difference. So all that banging on about, don't buy cheap paper and all the rest of it, I can see it's paid off. difference between Marion's style and Pat's style, and this is what we're after. We're very much after you all doing things in the way that which you will say. Oh, it is. Another question that's quite useful. Kids asked, on the trunk here and at the beginning of the branches, it's very dark, and it is. So if you could just make those bits, you can just go back with a thin brush and just darken up those bits. Less water, more paint, just on the base of your trunk. Oh, yes. A bit like Karen's done that. Did you do that?
No, she was.
Oh, so yeah, can you see how Karen's got the strength of tone in the trunk? So so can you use yours as an example? Helen was just saying her trunk didn't go well because her background was still wet. So you can see whilst the top of Helen's tree is brilliant, the bottom, the tone isn't very strong in it, whereas the tone in Karen's is much stronger. So what we're talking about here is getting your tones right in your tree by getting more paint and less water in the bits that need a bit of depth. Yeah? I love the way Russell promised you all, don't worry, nobody's going to see you work.
It's just the room.
Yeah. I love how that's very well written. That's well, it's interesting what Karen said about some people are holding the brush like they're holding a pencil. And of course, because that's what you use to holding, you know. I'm really pleased with these. Yeah, what you can do, we'll just dry brush. When you turn it brush in this so Derek, with your brush, flat end, anyone that would then you see,
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
These small, these genuinely. Honestly, they're great. Yes, well, I said this one when I was close up, but I've just seen it from a distance. Yes, and look at the clothes. Well done. Well done. Yeah. I think with your branches, if we've got a thin brush. Right. 149 for all these brushes.
Yeah. Mind you, I'm not sure they're
No, but that's okay. Right, look, let's just dance. Can you see?
Yeah.
It just needs a little bit of softening up. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Seriously, this has worked a lot better than I thought it would. I don't think anybody's done a bad one. I was hoping Karen would, because I'd quite like to have, had a go at it, but even Karen's is brilliant. Never have your friends in your class, that's what they say. Seriously, honestly, they're great. So what I'm going to suggest we do now is we stop. I would imagine your brains are aching. Yeah. Stop. You may want to put your masks on. I think it's entirely up to you what you do, but I would like you to have a wander around. I'd like you to see each other's work. If you don't want to show your work, just hide it away. That's fine. But I think it would be lovely, and we can learn a lot from looking at each other's stuff, have a conversation with each other. We've got some chocolate cakes here from a friend of our class called Ruth Bryant, who stands in for me sometimes. And they love it when she stands in for me because they know they'll get cakes. Okay, Debbie, when are you going on holiday again? So Ruth has made some cakes for you here. I think you've all brought your dinner. Is that right? Brilliant. Unfortunately, we can't make drinks for you. We're not allowed. But has everybody brought drinks? Excellent. Right. So if you want to finish that off, and we'll stop for a bit and we'll just have a bit of brain space. The door can open. You can wander into the garden, get a bit of fresh air, have a wander around, and it's up to you what we do about masks. I think that needs to be personal preference. Any comments on that?
Do we eat lunch in here?
You can eat lunch in here or you can go into the garden. Entirely up to you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Honestly, these have gone a lot